late 1980s. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Paisley Park Studios. Miles Davis walked through the doors of Prince's legendary recording complex, and he wasn't sure why he was there. The phone call had come 3 days earlier. Prince himself. Not a manager, not an assistant. Prince, Mr. Davis. This is Prince. I'd like to invite you to my studio. I want to show you something. Miles had been skeptical. Prince was the biggest pop star in the world. Purple Rain had made him a phenomenon. But Miles knew the difference between pop stars and musicians. Still, something in Prince's voice made Miles say yes. Now, walking through Paisley Park, Miles noticed everything. State-of-the-art equipment, multiple studios, a recording palace built by someone who took music seriously. Maybe this wouldn't be a waste of time after all. Prince met him in Studio A. They hadn't seen each other since that brief reunion in 1986. It was now several years later. Prince looked different, more confident, more established, more himself. Mr. Davis, thank you for coming. Miles nodded. You said you wanted to show me something. I do. But first, I wanted to ask, would you like to jam? Miles studied Prince. Jam? What do you play? Everything. But today, I thought we could play together. You and me, just see what happens. Miles was intrigued, despite himself. What did you have in mind? Prince smiled. I thought maybe you could play trumpet, and I could play. He paused. Well, that's the surprise. Miles' radar went up. Pop stars always wanted something. A collaboration for publicity. A photo for their wall. Credibility by association. But Prince's eyes didn't look like that. They looked nervous, excited. Like a student about to show a teacher a homework assignment. All right, Miles said. Let's see what you got. Prince led him to a room that made Miles stop in his tracks. It wasn't a typical recording studio. It was arranged like a jazz club. Instruments, set up in a circle, intimate, personal, and in the corner, on a stand, was a trumpet. Not Prince's, Miles's own trumpet, that his manager had delivered earlier that day at Prince's request. I wanted you to play your own horn, Prince explained. And I wanted the space to feel right. Miles picked up his trumpet, felt its familiar weight. So what are we playing? Whatever you want, Prince said. You start. I'll follow. Miles brought the trumpet to his lips, played a simple blues progression, nothing fancy, just feeling out the room. Prince picked up a guitar, started playing along, competent, good even, but nothing Miles hadn't heard before. Then Prince did something unexpected. He put down the guitar, walked to the other side of the room, and picked up a trumpet. Miles stopped playing. What are you doing? Prince looked at him directly. I want to play with you. Really play with you. Not guitar against trumpet. Trumpet with trumpet. Miles almost laughed. You play trumpet? A little. How long have you been playing? Prince's answer was quiet. Since 1978, Miles went still. 1978. The year they'd met, the night at the bottom line. The 5 minutes backstage. Show me, Miles said. Prince brought the trumpet to his lips and started playing. The first notes that came out weren't pop music. They weren't fusion. They were bebop, complex, intricate, technically demanding bebop. And Prince played it perfectly. Miles's eyes widened. This wasn't a little trumpet. This was serious. This was years of practice. This was dedication. Prince played a Charlie Parker line, then a Dizzy Gillespie phrase, then something that sounded like early Miles himself. When Prince stopped, Miles just stared at him. Where did you learn that? Prince set down the trumpet carefully. I've been taking lessons 3 times a week for almost 10 years. Why? Because that night in 1978, you taught me something about music, about silence, about the space between notes, but I couldn't fully understand it because I didn't understand trumpet. So you learned trumpet, not to perform, not to show off, to understand. You told me to turn my back to the audience, to focus on the music. I wanted to understand what music you were making when you turned your back. Miles felt something he rarely felt, surprise. Real surprise. Nobody knows. Prince continued. Not my band, not my label. I've kept it private. Because it wasn't about being Prince the pop star learning trumpet. It was about being a student trying to understand his teacher. Miles looked at this pop superstar standing in front of him. This kid he'd met 10 years ago in a small backstage room. This artist who'd actually listened. "Play something else," Miles said. Prince picked up the trumpet again. This time, he didn't play Charlie Parker. He played one of Miles's own solos, from So What. Note for note. Perfect. But it wasn't just technically perfect. Prince understood it. The phrasing, the intention, the silence. When he finished, Miles nodded slowly. "You've been paying attention. I've been paying attention to everything you said that night. Everything you showed me. I played every instrument on my first album, because you told me to play what I hear. I mixed genres, because you told me not to let them box me in. I turned my back to audiences, because you told me the music is what matters. And you learned trumpet. And I learned trumpet, because I wanted to understand you. Really understand you. Not just what you said, but what you played, how you thought. Why silence mattered as much as sound." Miles picked up his trumpet. "Let's play together. For real this time." What happened over the next 3 hours was something neither of them expected. They jammed, not pop star and jazz legend. Two trumpet players having a conversation. Miles would play a phrase. Prince would answer. Prince would pose a question musically. Miles would respond. Sometimes they played in unison. Sometimes they traded fours. Sometimes Miles led. Sometimes Prince led. It wasn't perfect. Prince was still learning. There were moments where he couldn't quite keep up with Miles's decades of experience. But he understood. He got it. The vocabulary. The language. The conversation. At one point, Miles stopped and asked, "Why didn't you tell anyone about this?" Prince thought for a moment. "Because it's not about showing the world. It's about the work. You taught me that. The music matters. Not the image. Not the performance. The music. You turned your back. I turned my back. Even to this. Especially to this. Learning trumpet wasn't about adding another instrument to my repertoire. It was about understanding what you taught me at a level deeper than words." Miles nodded, then asked, "What do you hear when you play trumpet?" "I hear what you meant about silence. When I play guitar or piano, I can fill every space. But trumpet forces you to breathe, forces you to choose, forces you to leave room. That one note you played that night in 1978, after 5 seconds of silence. I understand that note now, because I've tried to play it. Can you play it?" "Not yet. But I'm working on it." Miles almost smiled. That's the right answer. The day you think you can play it perfectly is the day you've stopped learning. They played for another hour. Then Miles put down his trumpet. "You serious about this?" "I didn't expect that. You told me to be serious. You told me to care. You told me that being great means not caring what people think. This is me, not caring what people think. Nobody needs to know. Prince plays trumpet. But I needed to know. I needed to understand." Miles looked at Prince with something that might have been respect, might have been recognition, might have been pride. "You want to know something?" Miles said. "Most people who meet me, they want something from me. A photo, a quote, a collaboration they can put on their album cover. You're the first person in a long time who wanted something different." "What did I want?" "You wanted to understand, not to use, not to take. To understand. That's rare. That's why you're going to keep being great, because you're still trying to understand." Prince nodded. "That night in 1978 changed my life. Not just what you said. What you showed me, how you played, how you existed, how you refused to compromise. I've tried to live up to that every day since. You have. I've heard your music. It's different. It doesn't sound like anyone else. That's what I told you to do. I learned from the best." Miles shook his head. "No, you learned from yourself. I just gave you permission. But you did the work. You learned trumpet. Not because I told you to, because you wanted to understand. That's not me. That's you." As Miles was leaving, he stopped at the door. "You know what the difference is between a student and a disciple?" Prince shook his head. "A student learns what you teach. A disciple understands why you teach it. You're a disciple. Keep playing trumpet, but keep it private if you want. The music is what matters, not who knows about it. One more question, Prince said. Why did you come today? You could have said no, Miles considered. Because when you called, you didn't ask me to play on your record. You didn't ask me to endorse something. You asked me to come see something you wanted to show me. That kind of humility is rare, especially from someone as famous as you. I'm still the same kid you met in 1978. No, you're not. That kid was talented. You're great. But you became great because you stayed humble. You learned trumpet in secret for 10 years to understand one lesson. That's not normal. That's exceptional. After Miles left, Prince's band asked him how did it go. Good, Prince said. What did you show him? Prince smiled. Just something I've been working on. The trumpet stayed in Studio A. Prince would practice there in the middle of the night when no one was around. He never performed trumpet publicly, never recorded it, never told interviewers. Because it wasn't about performance, it was about understanding. Years later, when Miles Davis died in 1991, Prince was devastated. At a concert the following week he stopped mid-show and told the audience about Miles, but he left something out. He didn't mention the trumpet lessons, didn't mention the 3 hours they jammed, didn't mention that he'd been secretly learning trumpet for over a decade. Because Miles had taught him the music is what matters, not who knows about it. But at the end of that concert, Prince did something he'd never done before. He turned his back to the audience and played a trumpet solo. Brief, simple, heartbreaking. The audience didn't understand. They thought he was playing keyboards or synthesizer from backstage. Only Prince knew. It was trumpet. The instrument Miles mastered. The instrument Prince had been learning in secret since 1978. One note, held for a long time. After 5 seconds of silence, the same note Miles had played that night in 1978 that changed Prince's life. Prince had spent 13 years learning to play that one note. Not perfectly, but truthfully, and in that moment, playing trumpet with his back, turned to 20,000 people, Prince understood something profound. Miles had been right about everything. The music was what mattered, not the performance, not the image. Prince had learned trumpet in secret for 13 years to understand one 5-minute conversation. That's not dedication. That's devotion. That's not practice. That's pilgrimage. That's the difference between someone who learns an instrument and someone who learns a lesson. Subscribe for more stories about respect, dedication, and what it means to truly understand your teacher. Prince invited Miles to Paisley Park in the late 1980s. Miles was skeptical. Pop stars always wanted something. But Prince wanted to show Miles something. A trumpet. You play trumpet? Miles asked. A little, Prince said. Then Prince played. Bebop. Charlie Parker. Dizzy Gillespie. Miles's own solos. Perfect. Miles was shocked. Where did you learn that? Prince. I've been taking lessons 3 times a week for almost 10 years, since 1978. Since you told me to turn my back and focus on the music. Miles understood. Prince hadn't learned trumpet to perform. He'd learned it to understand. They jammed for 3 hours. 2 trumpets. 2 artists. 1 conversation. Miles left, saying, "You're a disciple. Keep playing trumpet, but keep it private if you want. The music is what matters, not who knows about it." Prince never performed trumpet publicly. Never recorded it. Never told interviewers. Except once. When Miles died in 1991, Prince turned his back to the audience, played trumpet, 1 note after 5 seconds of silence. The same note Miles played in 1978. It took Prince 13 years to learn that 1 note, not to perform it, to understand it. That's the difference between learning an instrument and learning a lesson. Miles taught Prince that music is what matters. Prince proved he understood by learning trumpet in secret for 13 years. Not for fame, not for credit, for understanding. That's not practice. That's devotion. That's not a student. That's a disciple. And that's why both of them were great.